everyone. Welcome to the Writing Your Personal Narrative workshop. Before getting started, please make sure you've downloaded or printed the worksheets that can be found in the same place as you found this video. In response to the Interim Final Rule, or the IFR, the Wyoming Department of Transportation reached out to us as a trusted supportive services provider across multiple states to develop this workshop to assist you all as small business owners with writing your personal narratives that are now required as part of the certification process. This training will provide technical assistance focused solely on helping you craft and strengthen your personal narrative. Our goal is to support you in developing a well-structured and authentic narrative. My name is Trish Moreno, and I'm one of the consultants here at Project Solutions, Inc. Since December of last year, we have conducted several personal narrative workshops just like this one in Idaho, Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota, helping individuals draft personal narratives that are compliant with IFR requirements. I hope that by the end of this workshop, you'll feel more confident in writing your narrative. Before we really get going here, I'm going to go over a few things that are relevant to the WYDOT reevaluation process. WYDOT has set a target date of July 1, 2026 for any firms interested in DBE certification to submit their reevaluation documents. July 1st is not a deadline, but it is a target date that allows WYDOT to begin the restart of their DBE program. If you are unsure at this time if you want to be reevaluated, you can submit your personal narrative and your personal net worth at any time for reevaluation. Until you have submitted the recertification documents and received recertification determination from WYDOT, your firm will be considered inactive in the DBE program. If you're unsure or you know that you will not be completing the reevaluation process, WYDOT does ask that you reach out to Lillian Zuniga with the WYDOT DBE program to notify her of your firm's intentions. At this point, it's important to note that this session does not determine, influence, or assess eligibility related to your personal narrative. It is strictly about writing guidance and best practices. So while we can't guarantee that your personal narrative will meet the qualification standards for DBE reevaluation, the goal is to help you tell your story effectively and write narratives that are clear, concise, and effectively demonstrate your experiences and economic disadvantage under the new IFR requirements. So before we talk about writing your personal narratives, let's look at a summary of the key changes that the IFR brought about when it went into effect on October 3rd, 2025. This is by no means a detailed summary of the IFR, but it is an overview of key points that could affect your certification process. You can visit the link in the QR code to read the complete IFR. Our focus today is not to question the legality or the politics surrounding these changes. We're here to help you understand the requirements and confidently write your personal narrative, focusing on how to make it compliant. And as we work through this process, remember that Project Solutions will be available to assist you in one-on-one sessions with guidance on your personal narrative. We'll give you that information on how to book a session with us at the end of the presentation. The USDOT's IFR has significantly impacted how DBEs are certified and how they participate in federally funded transportation projects. So let's take a closer look at some of those key changes. First off is the elimination of presumptions. Previously, certain groups were presumed to be socially and economically disadvantaged based on race or gender. The IFR removes these presumptions, requiring all applicants to individually prove their disadvantage. In the updated FAQ from USDOT that they released in December of 2025, it is clear that gender and race are no longer the criteria for eligibility and should not be the focus of the social disadvantage in your personal narrative. Individualized certification is required. Applicants must now submit a detailed personal narrative explaining the specific social and economic barriers they have faced. Financial documentation, including a personal net worth statement, is also required to support the claims. Mandatory recertification for existing DBEs. All currently certified DBEs must undergo the reevaluation process under the new standards. And until that process is complete, their participation in DBE programs is suspended. There's also been a suspension of DBE goals. Agencies are temporarily prohibited from setting DBE goals or counting DBE participation in contracts until the recertification process is finalized. There's also been a shift in terminology. The rule also updates terminology, moving from race neutral and race conscious to DBE neutral and DBE conscious to reflect the new approach. In addition, data collection has undergone changes as well. Race, ethnicity, and gender data will no longer be collected in DBE applications, aligning with the rule's focus on individualized disadvantage rather than group identity. And the legal context of these challenges are a direct response to recent legal challenges, including the MAMCO lawsuit and Supreme Court decisions that have reshaped how affirmative action and race-conscious policies are evaluated. Under the new IFR, the certification process for DBE applicants has fundamentally changed. In the past, certain groups were automatically presumed to be socially and economically disadvantaged. But under the IFR, that automatic presumption based on race or gender has been removed. Now, every applicant must demonstrate disadvantage based on their own individual experiences and circumstances. That means each person must provide individualized evidence, not assumptions, not statistics, but their personal story, and support it with documented facts. A key part of that individualized proof is the personal narrative. This is where you'll describe your own real experiences, specific moments where you faced barriers, bias, or unequal access that affected your education, employment, or business opportunities. So today, our focus is not on debating the legality or politics behind the change. Our goal is to make sure you feel confident telling and substantiating your story in a clear, factual, and structured way that aligns with the new requirements. Let's take a closer look at what the personal narrative should include and the best practices to make it effective. Under the new rule, the personal narrative is your opportunity to show individualized proof of disadvantage, not just say that it happened. Certifiers are looking for specific examples that clearly demonstrate how bias, discrimination, or systemic barriers affected your ability to succeed. Each incident should show how your progress was impeded in education, employment, or business, and ideally, how that led to economic harm. For example, you might describe being denied a promotion despite qualifications, losing access to financing, or being excluded from opportunities that others received. Most applicants are encouraged to describe 2 incidents unless one was so pervasive or recurring that it had long-term effects by itself. And remember, these incidents must have taken place within the United States and reflect your own lived experience. The purpose of this requirement is to ensure DBE certification decisions are based on real, documented disadvantage, not assumptions or generalizations. So let's think about that for a minute together. Why do you think certifiers might need specific incidents rather than general statements to prove economic or social disadvantage? Again, we've done these trainings across multiple states, and some of the answers that we have heard to that question is because certifiers need proof, not just opinions. Specifics make your story real and verifiable. It helps them see the actual impact, not just the feeling. The new rule is about individualized evidence, not assumptions. And specifics make it easier for them to apply the same standard to everyone. So those are all exactly right. Your specific examples make your story credible, measurable, and compliant with the IFR. So next, we'll walk through how to identify and write about those incidents step by step. Okay, so now we've established why we're here to talk about personal narratives. Before we begin this exercise, I do want to acknowledge something important. Reflecting on experiences of bias or discrimination can be very personal, sometimes emotional and even difficult. I want you to know that there's no judgment here. We are simply working to identify factual experiences that have affected your professional, educational, or business opportunities. The purpose is to help you tell your story clearly and effectively in your personal narrative. Through this workshop, we'll guide you to select 2 specific incidents that best illustrate social disadvantage that you have experienced. One incident may be enough if it was pervasive, meaning that it was widespread or deeply rooted. It happened repeatedly, affected multiple areas of your life, or created long-term barriers, not just a one-time event. In most cases, providing 2 examples helps the certifiers understand the scope of your experiences without creating unnecessary delays in the review process. Our objective is to help this process result in a certification on the first attempt. So first, we're going to focus on the 3 main areas from the IFR where disadvantage may have occurred. First off is education. This includes denial of access to schools or programs, exclusion from honors or associations, or social pressures that discouraged your professional or business education. Next up is employment. This includes unequal treatment in hiring, promotions, and pay, benefits, terms of employment, or being steered into non-professional roles. And then lastly is business history. This includes unequal access to financing or contracts, unfavorable lending terms, unequal treatment by customers or business associates, or exclusion from professional networks. So again, think broadly about your life experience in these areas. The incident does not have to be recent, and there's been a lot of confusion about that. It can be from any period in your life, as long as it occurred in the United States and had an impact on your educational, professional, or business progress. Because automatic presumptions based on race or gender have been removed, many applicants worry that their experiences might not count. But the IFR does make something very clear. Discrimination and bias come in many forms, not only race or gender. There are several other types of disadvantage that may be relevant, and these experiences can absolutely support your personal narrative when they are specific, documented, and clearly linked to economic harm. Let's look at some examples. First off is socioeconomic bias. For example, being tracked away from advanced or business-related classes because of your family income or the neighborhood you grew up in. That's a form of disadvantage tied to education and opportunity. Accent or language bias. Not related to national origin, but related to the way you speak. Maybe being told you weren't professional enough, or being excluded from client-facing roles, which directly impacts employment progression and earnings potential. Age-based bias is another one. Being denied promotions because you were considered too young or not taken seriously as a business owner with lenders or contractors. Conversely, older applicants may have been passed over for training or advancement because employers preferred younger candidates. Some individuals experience barriers due to disability, whether that's physical or learning related. For example, inadequate accommodations in school that limited academic advancement, or workplace structures that hindered promotions. Situations involving veteran status is another one, where individuals returning from service face unequal treatment in employment or have difficulty reestablishing business opportunities. Another common form involves caregiver or family responsibilities, particularly if employers made assumptions that you were less committed or less available, leading to missed promotions or reduced opportunities. And then finally, there are institutional barriers. Not personal prejudice, but systemic factors like policies, bureaucratic hurdles, or organizational norms that repeatedly disadvantaged you. What matters most for your personal narrative is not the category it is. It is the specific incident, the specific impact, and the direct connection to economic harm. So again, as we move forward, think broadly. Think about experiences where something outside of your control held you back in school, at work, or in your business journey, and how that setback translated into a financial or business obstacle. Now we're going to use worksheet number 1 to identify 2 incidents. And while you're getting that ready, I'll explain this step of the process. This is where you're going to begin brainstorming for your personal narrative. For each incident, you'll answer what happened, who was involved, when and where did it occur, why do you believe it was biased or discriminatory, how did it impact your educational, professional, or business progress. At this stage, you don't need to write full paragraphs, just short notes or bullet points that capture the key facts. Later, we'll turn those notes into narrative paragraphs. Remember, we're looking for chronic or substantial disadvantage, not just minor frustrations. Focus on incidents where the disadvantage caused measurable impact. For example, lost opportunities, delayed advancement, or restricted access to education, employment, or business resources. Think of a time you faced an obstacle that others in your position did not. What lasting effect did it have on your business or career path? And then try to identify 2 incidents that are specific, factual, and significant. As you work, ask yourself the questions on the screen. What exactly happened? Who was involved? When and where did it occur? Why do I believe bias was a factor? And how did this impact my progress or economic opportunity? If it's helpful, start by jotting down any events or situations that come to mind. Then, select the 2 that are clearest and most impactful. Remember, we're going for bullet points here, not full paragraphs. Pause the video here and complete worksheet number 1. Start the video back up when you're ready to continue. Now that you've identified your 2 incidents, it's time to turn those notes into full narrative paragraphs. This is where your personal narrative starts to take shape and come together to become the document that certifiers are going to use to evaluate your social and economic disadvantage. To do this, we're going to use the who, what, when, where, why, and how framework, or the 6W1H framework, to ensure each incident is complete, factual, and clearly demonstrates how the barrier affected your education, employment, or business success. Remember, your goal is clarity, specificity, and impact, not length. 1 or 2 well-documented instances are enough. So let's review the 6W questions you'll answer for each instance. First off is who. Identify the person, group, or institution responsible. For scenario number 1, that's going to be the commercial loan officer. For scenario number 2, my manager, Jane Doe. What? Describe the conduct or barrier. Example for scenario number 1. Denied my loan application despite meeting all criteria as explained by the bank. And again, you want to make sure and include what those criteria are. So in our example, to qualify for a business loan at ABC Bank, the following criteria are generally considered. A personal credit score of at least 640 is typically required. A minimum of 2 years in business is often necessary. And a debt service coverage ratio, or DSCR, of 1.5 or higher is usually required, meaning you make $1.50 for every $1 of outstanding business debt you currently have. In our other scenario, It's going to be denied my request to attend a professional development conference that would result in me obtaining a certification directly applicable to my work. Then you're going to answer when. You want to establish the time period that the incidents happened. So for example, scenario number 1, in January 2019 while applying for a business loan, and in scenario number 2, in spring 2017 when I worked for XYZ company. And then you're going to answer where and show the context of where that happened. So scenario number 1, at an ABC Bank National Branch in Cheyenne, or at XYZ Company in Laramie, Wyoming, USA. And then you're going to answer why. Explain why you believe this was bias or discrimination, or the reason the conduct was more likely motivated by a systemic barrier or disadvantage. So again, in scenario number 1, the officer made comments or asked questions unrelated to financial qualifications about my personal background, educational history, and age. The decision contradicted the bank's stated criteria and typical practices, or their similarly situated loan applicants with comparable financials received approval. In scenario number 2, every year 4 people on my team would get the opportunity to attend a professional development conference in another state. After completing the program, participants would gain a certificate. There were 4 people on my team with the same job duties, job title, and role, including me. The department had funding to send 4 people to the conference. The 3 other team members I work with were allowed to go as well, but my request was denied, and I was told that the opportunity needed to be given to someone who could grow into the role, and a person with less experience, a lower job classification, was permitted to go instead of me and gain the certificate. And then you want to answer how. Show the impact on your education, employment, or business. So in scenario number 1, this prevented equipment purchases and delayed contracts by 18 months, reducing revenue by $90,000. And in scenario number 2, 4 people who were allowed to attend received the compliance certification. The 3 people who were on my team were able to leverage that to get higher wage increases, and 2 moved up to supervisory roles. The person who was a lower classification also received a promotion and now receives the same pay as me. Even though I have 3 more years of experience, I remained in the same job class without any additional compensation. So notice how each question builds on the others to create a complete story with evidence and context. You can now take those answers and rearrange them to form your complete stories. So here's scenario number 1. In 2019, at ABC Bank Branch in Cheyenne, Wyoming, the commercial loan officer denied my business loan application despite meeting all of the stated criteria. I had a personal credit score above 640, 2 years in business, and a debt service coverage ratio exceeding 1.5, which the bank lists as standard requirements. I met all of the stated criteria, so I believe I was denied the loan based on other standards as compared to other loan applicants who met the stated criteria and received the financing. This denial prevented me from purchasing essential equipment and delayed contracts for 18 months, reducing my revenue by approximately $90,000. Scenario number 2. In spring 2017, while I was working at XYZ Company in Laramie, Wyoming, my manager, Jane Doe, denied my request to attend a professional development conference that would have resulted in a certification directly applicable to my role. Each year, the department has funding to send 4 team members with identical job duties, titles, and roles to this out-of-state conference, and although I was one of those 4, my request was denied. The other 3 team members were approved to attend, while I was told that the opportunity needed to be given to someone who would grow into the role, and instead a less experienced employee with a lower job classification was allowed to go and earn the certification. As a result, the 3 colleagues who attended were later able to leverage the certification into higher wage increases, and 2 advanced into supervisory positions. The employee who attended from a lower classification was also promoted and now earns the same salary as I do, despite my having 3 additional years of experience. I remained in the same job classification without any additional compensation or advancement opportunities. So obviously those are just fictitious examples, but you see how answering each question develops into a full narrative. So now it's your turn. Take incident number 1 from your notes and answer the 6 W questions on worksheet number 2. Then, turn your answers into a short paragraph like the example I just went through as a guide. Remember, your goal is clarity, specificity, and impact, not length. Keep your sentences concise and factual. Focus on impact. Certifiers need to see the economic or professional consequence. And remember, since race and sex presumptions have been removed, you want your personal narrative to not focus on those presumptions, or it may be found ineligible. Use numbers, dates, or other measurable details if possible. And then pause the video while you complete worksheet number 2. Start the video when you're ready to continue. Now that you've drafted your 2 narrative paragraphs using the who, what, when, where, why, and how framework, it's time to connect your experiences to measurable economic harm. This is one of the most important parts of your personal narrative. Under the IFR, you have to show that the barriers or incidents you described had a real negative effect on your ability to advance in education, employment, or business. It's not enough to show that bias occurred. You have to show how it impacted your income, opportunities, or access to capital. Economic harm doesn't always mean a specific dollar amount, though it helps if you can specifically estimate one. Economic harm can include things like lost income or business revenue, missed contract opportunities, denial of financing or credit, unfavorable loan terms, increased business costs due to exclusion, delayed career advancement or growth, lower pay, benefits, or promotion opportunities, difficulty building assets or wealth compared to peers. Your goal is to show cause and effect. The barrier caused a measurable or describable financial setback or slowed your progress compared to similarly situated individuals who didn't face that bias. So let's look at a couple of examples to make this concrete. Example number 1 is education. In 2016, I was denied admission to a certificate program at a public institution. Because I was unable to enroll, I didn't complete the certification on schedule and remained in lower paying positions for approximately 4 years. As a result, I earned an estimated $60,000 less in cumulative wages and missed corresponding retirement and career advancement opportunities during that period. Example number 2 is employment. During my career, I was consistently passed over for promotions despite positive performance reviews and meeting all required qualifications. Employees with similar tenure and qualifications advanced ahead of me. This delayed my advancement into management by approximately 5 years, costing me higher wages and retirement contributions during that period. So notice how each example connects the incident to a clear, measurable outcome. It's important that you make that link, the barrier, the harm, and the impact. Be as quantitative as possible and as specific as possible. Now, take out worksheet number 3, quantifying the impact. This is where you're going to translate your experiences into tangible evidence of harm. On the worksheet, you'll see 4 sections: the type of harm, description, magnitude, and evidence. Think about what kind of harm resulted from your incidents. Maybe it was lost revenue, a delayed project, or a denied opportunity. Then, describe how that happened and estimate how large the impact was. In the last section, jot down any evidence that could support your story. Things like letters, emails, loan denials, or bid records. Don't worry if you don't have those documents ready to go today. The goal is simply to know what you could provide or describe it clearly in your narrative. Now, pause the video again to complete this worksheet for each of your 2 incidents. Start the video when you're ready to continue. Once you've described your economic harm, you'll link it to your personal net worth statement. This is part of your supporting documentation for DBE certification. Your P&W shows your current financial position, but your narrative explains why your financial position reflects disadvantage. Together, they should demonstrate that you are economically disadvantaged in fact relative to similarly situated individuals. For example, if you were denied access to credit or delayed in business growth, your lower asset base or business equity compared to peers supports your narrative. Be sure to reference this connection briefly at the end of your personal narrative. An example closing line could be, "These experiences have contributed to my current financial position, which is reflected in my personal net worth statement attached to this application." Now, take a quick minute to reflect on what you've written. This process isn't just about compliance. It's about clearly documenting the barriers that you've faced and how you've continued to move forward despite them. Now you're through the hardest and most important parts of your personal narrative. You've identified your experiences, organized them into clear narratives, and then connected them to economic harm. These are the key elements that are going to be evaluated under the new IFR standards. In this final section, I'm going to share a checklist and sample narrative so you can see how these pieces come together into a polished submission. Remember, clarity, evidence, and professionalism are your best tools for success. We've spent the last bit of time identifying key incidents of bias or disadvantage, organizing them using the 5W1H framework, and connecting them to clear examples of economic harm. Now, let's bring it all together into your final personal narrative draft. Your final narrative should include 2 distinct incidents. One or both can come from your education, employment, or business experience. Each should be about 1 paragraph, written in plain, factual language. Think of it as telling the story of what happened, how it affected you, and how that connects to your economic position today. Each incident should follow the 5W1H framework. Let's take a look at a couple of examples together. In 2015, while working as a project manager at a regional construction firm in South Dakota, I applied for a senior project manager position. I exceeded the list of qualifications and had successfully led several high-value projects. The position was instead given to a less experienced employee who was part of the same social network as upper management. I was later told informally that I wasn't a fit for the leadership culture, which effectively excluded me from consideration. Because of this, I remained in a lower-paying role for 3 more years, resulting in an estimated loss of $25,000 per year in wages and benefits compared to the compensation for the senior role. This delay in advancement also slowed my ability to save and limited the capital I could invest in starting my business. Incident number 2 is education. In 2012, during my final year in a 2-year technical program, I requested placement in the school's advanced internship track. This track consistently led to higher paying jobs with local employers and was the primary pipeline for positions starting at $28 to $32 per hour. Despite meeting the GPA requirement and having strong faculty recommendations, I was told that students like me usually do better in the basic placements, and my application was not forwarded. 2 classmates with similar academic records and less relevant work experience were accepted into the advanced track. Because I was placed in a basic internship instead, my post-graduation job offer was for $17 per hour, $11 less than the average starting wage for graduates from the advanced internship program. It took me nearly 4 years to reach the salary level that those classmates earned in their first year. This delay reduced my cumulative earnings by an estimated $45,000 to $60,000 and slowed my ability to save, build credit, and qualify for early financing for my business. Notice how each paragraph clearly answers the 6 questions: when, where, who, what, why, and how. And it ends with tangible example of economic harm. It's factual and concise, and it avoids emotional language while still showing the human reality of disadvantage. So as you prepare your own narrative, keep these key points in mind. Keep it factual, not emotional. Focus on evidence and impact. Avoid general statements like, "I was always treated unfairly." Instead, describe a specific event. End each incident with a clear statement of how it affected your progress or financial position. And attach your personal net worth statement and any supporting documents, letters, denials, contracts. Those are optional, but they do strengthen your narrative. Before we wrap up, I hope you're feeling more confident than you did when we started this workshop. If you're still feeling uncertain though, don't worry. The process takes time, and you can use the worksheets that we've provided to refine your examples after watching this video. Okay, so we're at the end of the workshop. As a reminder, if you are found ineligible, there may be a waiting period to reapply, so it is important to give your personal narrative your full attention. Clear incidents, strong evidence, and a well-structured explanation of economic harm are going to help get you there. There is no deadline for submitting your personal narrative, but the sooner WYDOT gets them back and reevaluated, the sooner they can begin setting goals on projects. By now, you should have received an email from Lillian Zuniga at WYDOT that contained guidance documents and templates for your personal narrative as tools for you to use in submitting your reevaluation documents to WYDOT. They include the WYDOT Personal Narrative Guidance, the Wyoming Narrative Template, and the Personal Net Worth Statement form. Remember, there's no deadline for submitting your personal narrative, but WYDOT has set a goal to have as many as possible submitted by July 1st, 2026. You can submit your personal narrative and your personal net worth statement for reevaluation by sending Lillian an email at lillian.zuniga1@wyo.gov, as listed on the slide. You can also mail the documents as well. All of the information that is submitted to WYDOT for the reevaluation process is protected from Wyoming's open records laws. Firms that have been decertified by WYDOT will have the option to appeal the decision to USDOT, and that information will be included in the decertification letter that WYDOT will send out. We know that you may need additional support and assistance in completing your personal narratives, and there have been services popping up all over the internet that charge for personal narrative assistance or training. But thanks to funding from WYDOT, our services are provided at no cost to all Wyoming inactive DBE firms. Please reach out to the team at Project Solutions to schedule a one-on-one session with one of our consultants to provide guidance and feedback and tools as you write your own personal narrative. Send an email to dbe@projectsolutionsinc.com to begin the process of scheduling a session. A big thank you to the Wyoming DOT for making this recording possible. Thank you all for watching. I hope this workshop was helpful as you begin the process of writing your personal narratives. Have a fantastic rest of your day.